Hi everyone, and welcome to another No Nonsense Whiskey live stream, Dram Slam live, if you will. This is the show where I bring the kind of Dram Slam live kind of concept, the podcast that I did a couple of years ago, to a live stream and bring interesting guests through to you guys and hopefully have a good old time. Now, it's the second one of these that I've done, and the tech has sort of played ball, sort of not in the past, and today in the kind of preamble to this. I've struggled a little bit to make sure that this is all right, so hopefully you can all hear me, and hopefully you'll be able to hear my guest, and hopefully it will all work today. But if it doesn't, again, please bear with me and keep the comments going to let me know what you can hear and what you can't hear, because we're still trying to figure this out. But yeah, today we've got a really great guest. But before we get into that, I'll do my quick intro and we'll have a little look in the chat and see who is around. See you in a mo. I must figure out how to make that with kind of like music and things like that. Anyway, hopefully you can all hear me. Let's get into the chat and see who's around. We had Johnny in early today, so thanks for coming in, Johnny H. Nice to see you. We've got Simon in. He's one of my Discord. In fact, I think most of you must be on my Discord now. If you're not, then make sure you check the link below in the description to check out the Discord server, because as always, I'll be doing an after party after this relatively short stream. But please do go and check out that server. It's really good. We've got David Owen in. He's saying good evening, same as Whiskey Lover Society. Go and check them out on YouTube. Alan is in. Anthony is in. In fact, what did Alan say? Whiskey at noon, yes please. Not quite noon for me, but I get it. Absolutely, why not? Good way to start your Monday. Dame Judy Hench is in. Still love that name. That's a good name. Jeeve Star is in. Stephen is in, and Wraith is in. Good turnout so far. Hopefully more people will pick up as we go through. But probably best to go straight in with guest. Although, do I have guest? Oh, yeah. Tech. I think we have guest. Matt, are you ready to come in? Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, he's in. Okay, right. I'm going to transition over to this. Let's see if all the effort of setting this up was worth it. Let's go. There you go. Oh, I can hear me. I can hear me in it now for some reason. That didn't happen earlier. Yeah. Can we hear you, Matt?
No, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you. Good.
That's nice. That's good. I can hear you. Hello.
Right. Okay. No one's saying that they can't hear us yet, so that's always a good start. In any case, thank you, Matt, for coming on. If in case anyone doesn't know who you are, this is Matt Mackay. As I've said, probably one of the busiest people in whiskey like ever. Always busy. You've gone from blogging, if you want to say blogging is the right word. I think it's whiskey writing, best word, onto Bimber, now onto Dunphail. We're going to go through that whole thing. But the first thing I like to ask people at the start is about whiskey origin stories. That's my kind of favourite question. Not what got you into writing, but what got you into whiskey in the first place.
Sure. So thanks for having me on, Vin. It's always good to see you. It's also good to see some tasty Bimber there with you. I've got a bottle of the Imperial Stout with me here, so I can dram along with you there.
Same indeed.
Origin stories. I've told this one many times, so I'll try to keep it fresh as if I have never said this before, but I have told this story before. But it is true. Um, 22 years ago, I was working in corporate events. Back then, events were taking place around the world, big congresses, big exhibitions, all for really exciting stuff like traffic lights and mechanical discs and lovely technical things like that, that you'd be amazed that there is even a conference for trim fix signals going on, but it is quite big. Anyway, so I had to travel around the world, and back then you used to get drinks on every flight. It just was part and parcel of getting on the flight. You get a drink, and I'm an okay flyer now. Back then I was poor to average, so I always wanted a drink on the plane just to calm my nerves, particularly on takeoff. Didn't like it. Still on the edge of it. Um, I was drinking lots of gin and tonics. You don't get particularly good gin and tonics on the plane, even nowadays. But I was getting bored of it. And being a young, impressionable man, I was sat down, and the hostess came along and said to the guy next to me, "What would you like to drink, sir?" And he said, "I'd like a Scotch and ginger." And I just said, "Sure, I'll have what he's having. Why not? I've never had a Scotch and ginger, just drinking gin and tonics, the occasional beer." So I had this Scotch and ginger. It was Dewar's White Label, been around forever, still around. I didn't mind it at all. So after I came back from that trip, I thought, well, that's the thing, I quite like that Scotch and ginger. Let's buy a bottle of Dewar's White Label, easy, supermarket. So I bought that, and I had a Scotch and ginger, tasty. And then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this Scotch on its own. Yeah, that didn't go so well. So I had a few more Scotches and gingers, and then I thought, hold on a minute, I bought this bottle, and people do drink this on its own. So I started to try, and the same's going to become true. And I'm going to talk about the next bottle. It takes a while to get into it. It takes a while for your palate to adjust. But long story short, by the end of the bottle, I wouldn't say it was love at first taste, but it was all right. It was enough to spark sort of an interest in me, going, okay, well, when I bought this white label, there was loads of different whiskies that I could have bought. I wonder what some of those are like. So the next bottle I bought, and it's probably the most important bottle of whiskey that I ever bought, was Old Pulteney 12-year-old. So anyone who knows me knows that Pulteney has been a lifelong, career-long favourite distillery and whiskey of mine. But it all started with the 12-year-old. That's the next thing I bought after Dewar's White Label. I was like, right, this is a single malt, so I'm gonna crack this. Here we go. Hated it. I didn't just and know about it. I actually hated it. I was like, what is this? Why does this drink taste like salty? Well, who can like this? And about a quarter of the bottle down, I'm like, okay, well, it's bearable, but I'm not enjoying it at all. By the end of the bottle, I thought, you know what? I think I am enjoying it. I'm not loving it, but there's something there. There's something really, really interesting. And that's my whiskey origin story. Effectively, it was just testing your palate, and yeah, some of these flavors, minerality, uh, peat, and then as you get more complicated and more diverse, some sort of more industrial funkiness, barnyard. Yeah, very few people. I just don't believe origin stories when it's like, yeah, the first thing I ever drank was a cask strength Ardbeg, and I've loved it ever since. Really? No, so I'm only about 19 years old at this point, and yeah, it took a little while, but then at that point, once I'd broken through this hate to actually find interesting, that the floodgates were open, and then I've spent the last 20 odd years just trying as many whiskies as I can. It's probably up to, I don't know, 12, 14,000, something like that. Ridiculous number of whiskies now, and yeah, with what I do, that number goes exponentially up. Although they do tend to be from the same distilleries nowadays.
No, I completely agree with you. I wasn't far off. I mean, people are probably sick of hearing my origin story as well now, because I was exactly the same. I had to like really hammer through the idea of wanting to like whiskey, but actually not enjoying it until I had the epiphany moment. Actually, mine was the Old Pulteney 12 as well, which again I'm sure people are sick of hearing. But that was when someone bought me that. That was the one that made me go, hang about, I need to start Googling this now and then it's the nerd thing kicked in, and that was the slippery slope. But yeah, I've always, when people say to me, oh yeah, I tried that Lafroy, it was my first whiskey I ever had and I just loved it, and I've never hated people more when they say things like that, 'cause it's like it was a real struggle for me, a real fight, and you didn't have to fight at all.
No, a lot of love for the Old Pulteney 12. It's I just think in terms of people talk about gateway drams, and I think that's a different thing to saying I never like the term beginner's whiskey. I think that's bullshit. Some of these whiskies you can just say, yeah, they're not the most expensive, they're not the hardest to get, they're not the most complicated. That doesn't mean that for beginners only. But yeah, gateway drams. I think that
Mm.
is a thing, a whiskey that starts a journey, and there are a number out there. I mean, certainly, hear people Highland Park 12, things like that, Glen Grant, yeah, some crazy bastards who yeah, Lafroy 10-year-old. That was love at first taste. Good on them.
Yeah, and lucky them. Yes, Stephen Laidlow saying that Edredar 10 was his gateway dram, that's an excellent way to go. An excellent way to go. Feel free to drop the comments below, by the way, people, if you've got a gateway dram. we'll talk about it. But excellent. Probably best that we start talking about the Dramble then, because that's going to be a good wedge, I think. For those who don't know, I mean, I think how I met you was via the Dramble, I imagine, which I was reading probably before I started my channel, because you have a way of reviewing a whiskey, which isn't really reviewing a whiskey. It's almost like there's the preamble, and then there's the review, and then there's what I would consider to be a extremely robust scoring system, because I find that's one of my most frustrating things about reviewing whiskies is people's scoring systems when nothing's below an 80. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that's what really made me click with yours. But what made you start actually wanting to put information out on the internet?
Sure. So what I will say is I've been on something. We might talk a bit more about this. Where I've been. The Dramble's been on a hiatus for 4 months, just whilst I'm sort of getting used to what working for two distilleries at once looks like. Nevertheless, it'll be back. I've started writing again, so the Dramble will be back, and it'll be back from Wednesday. There's piles of samples that I need to get through. I've just had to reorganize my life. I haven't got any more time. I've just had to find the balance, mainly in my own head. The Dramble will be back from Wednesday. Anyway, it's a good question. I started, I guess this will be about 8-10 years into my whiskey journey. I started the whiskey club, and it was mainly just, I do think, as much as I end up spending a lot of time drinking whiskey on my own, in sort of not sterile conditions, but you know what I mean, kind of a little bit sterile, a little bit trying to keep it as samey as possible. I still believe deep down that what drives whiskey and what drives channels like yours and websites like mine and people coming together is that sense of sharing a drowning community. And so I started a whiskey club because I bought lots of whiskey, and I wanted to see what other people thought of it. So, this one I really liked. Do you like it? You're always on that journey. You're always learning. If the moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying. But at that point, I just really wanted, having had some experience, to find others. A few years into running that whiskey club, one of my members said to me, "You write for a living. You work in PR." I do. That's what I do. I said, "Well, you should write about whiskey." And I said two things. I said, well, number one, I'm a technical writer. My background is in engineering and science, so I've always written about technicalities, and that does come through on the Dramble, and it comes through on a lot of work I do for Bimber and Dunphail. So I was a bit nervous that, I think the best whiskey writing actually is about storytelling, and indeed the piece that I've penned for my return on Wednesday is about whiskey writing and storytelling, and how it's about a combination of knowledge and entertainment. But the second thing I said, well, look, even if I could write about whiskey, I used to be quite technical in the 90s, back when you stuck floppy disks into computers. I used to be quite good at that. But in this sort of modern digital internet-driven age, I haven't got a clue. So I said, look, I can't build a website to put all this supposed writing on. And at which point, one of my members, my good friend Danny Wimborne, put up his hand and said, I'm a web developer. I said, oh. And he said, if you write it, then I'll build it. And so we said, okay, we'll give it a go. And the Dramble, it's quite a few years ago now. It started off, when I look back at some of the early stuff, it's pretty shite, frankly. I think, if you look back on your, not being rude to them, but if you look back on your early videos, it's just getting into a flow. It's finding a voice. And it's part of the reason why I haven't written anything for 4 months, because my wife said to me, why don't you do a concept? She called it wee drams. Why don't you just do some quick fire tasting notes and just do that? And I thought about it and thought, no, that's not what my whiskey writing, my blogging is about. I don't think it's why anyone visits the Dramble. There are plenty of other sites, some of them excellent, Whiskey Notes, Whiskey Fun. And also Words of Whiskey, good friend with Tyster. That's where you go for your daily dose. You visit the Dramble for some deep dive, sometimes controversial opinion.
Oh, I think we might have just dropped Matt. Yes, we have. We're gonna get him back in a second. I'm not sure what's happened there. He's dropped off my system, but I'm not gonna reboot mine because I don't want to reboot the stream. Hopefully, he'll manage to put 50p in the meter. Hello, Ben. We're not sure. He dropped off a couple of times in testing as well, so we're not sure exactly why that happened. But the last thing I want to do is restart the software here, just in case. Hopefully, he's just gonna rejoin. But in any case, it's a good opportunity to say hello to a few people in the chat. I think I missed a few comments afterwards. After I said hello initially, Simon saying like the look of that bourbon tasting Starbridge. Oh yeah, that's a thing I put on Discord earlier today for sure. Ben Marnock, he's saying, hey, hi Vin, you good? Maybe a bottle of Imperial Tribute coming our way. Nice. Just trying to think. That's not this one, is it? No. Oh, the Imperial, of course. Yeah, the Imperial Tribute. Yeah, the thing that's in your warehouse. Of course it is. Yeah. I'm glad to see you finally sorted that out. But yeah, let me know what's happening with that. Interesting. I forgot about that. If I miss you and don't say hello to you, I am sorry. By the way. Yeah, Matt hasn't come back in yet, so that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing. I don't know if I can edit my streaming software without messing everything up. No. Always tech issues. Oh. I can see him. Can I hear him? Show on stream. Transition. Hello.
We were doing so well.
We were doing so well. It was close. Apparently the stream carried on, and I was talking. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but never mind. Whiskey with Molly Ben said you need to put 50p in the meter, so I guess you did.
Yeah, I literally turned it on and off again, Vin. So there we go.
Okay. And for some reason you're square now instead of.
Yeah, I'm on 4-3.
Okay.
It's like watching old episodes of Star Trek.
Let's just keep it rolling. I don't know if you knew where you got to then, but
I sort of got to the point about not wanting to write short things because it's already well served. And yeah, being a long form writer, writing at length it's my modus. It's what I like to do. It's what I like to find and read when I come into whiskey. I'm always hunting for knowledge. As I said, the moment you stop hunting for knowledge is the moment you start dying. So, thank you everybody who has visited that site. And I've had a few people message me and say, hope that you come back to it. And yeah, I will be.
Excellent. Yeah, we're really looking forward to that. Because yeah, like I said, I think the writing that you do there, as you mentioned a second ago, is really interesting because you really do deep dive, and often sometimes you can even write like basically what I would call an article beforehand, which I think is really good. You mentioned that you the article that's coming back on Wednesday is basically about whiskey writing.
Yeah, it's way too meta. I've written a piece about writing pieces.
Why not?
Nice. It was top of mind. It was what I was thinking about. I was thinking about whiskey writing and how I wanted to approach it, and whether I wanted to take the short path and just do some little quick, as I say, wee dreams, quick fire notes. And I thought, I don't want to. I want to write about this at depth. So yeah, for the first one back, I've written about writing at length.
Excellent. We'll look forward to it then. Hopefully everyone that's watching the stream will head over. I'm sure you'll tweet it and whatnot. Yeah, maybe. So obviously then, so you were writing for a while. At some point, you got picked up by Bimber.
Yeah, so that is random. Hate the term. I was invited as an influencer. Hate the term influencer. Don't like it. Don't use it. I don't think I'm influential at all. And I'm not here to be influential. I'm here to do what I want to do. Anyway, I was invited to Bimber, which is my closest distillery. I'm based in northwest London. And it was a great tour. I was really impressed with what they were doing. I was impressed with the juice. At that point, it was just a little over 2 years old. And at the end of the night, I was talking to Darius, the founder, and we were discussing comms and marketing. And he said, "Well, we're all geared up here. We're looking at launching later in the year, doing our first release. We don't have any comms and marketing. That's what you do. Would you mind looking over a few applications from agencies who are pitching to do the launch of the first ever Bimber?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll have it." So about a week later, I got a folder full of documents of PR and marketing agency pitches. And yeah, I'm used to looking through many pitch documents, and they were all lovely. They were all very colourful, lots of nice pictures, lots of lovely words. Most of them made total sense, and not a single one of them knew anything about whiskey. Nothing. It was also, yeah, just high level. It was just good marketing comms advice. And I just feel like a distillery like Bimber, and you've been a couple of times, been it's very authentic.
Hmm.
It truly is. And so if you're going to communicate about it, I feel and still do that you have to do that authentically. For a distillery like that, it's the only way to be. And so I spoke to my wife and I said, you know what? I think I'm going to pitch for this myself. I'm just going to, I think I can do this. I can take my knowledge of whiskey and my background in technical PR and marketing and do this in addition to my day job, which at the time was working in biomedical science. And yeah, I did. And they said, okay. And they offered me a contract to launch the first release. I did. And I think you came along to a little party we had for that. And
I did.
yeah, it obviously went all right because then they said, did you want to continue doing that? And so for nearly 3 years, I effectively did two jobs at the same time. At one point, I did three jobs at the same time because I did some marketing and PR work for Somerton Club
Hmm.
just at the point of lockdown. And at that point, I was like, right, you're an idiot, Matthew. Three jobs at the same time when everyone's dealing with the crisis that is COVID. I thought my brain was going to fall out my nose. But yeah, so it started as literally turning up to the distillery and saying hello. It then borrowed from my skill set to do one job, literally a sort of 4 month piece of work. And yeah, that led to then that becoming a sort of second part time job at that point.
Excellent. Yeah. I think that might have been. I just wondering if that's the first time I met you. I think I might have met you at a festival before that, but obviously definitely met you at that launch party.
My first memory of I know we'd spoken, but my first memory
Mm.
of meeting you was at London Whiskey Show near the Macallan stand.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Always an interesting place to meet people that you've been speaking to for a while because very rarely do you walk into a whiskey festival and just start meeting people. Usually you go straight for the first stand and start getting whiskey down your neck. So by the
Or
time
run to the run bundle to the shop to try to buy all the things that you're going to flip in the next day or two.
I've never learnt that skill. I've never learnt the skill of going straight to the shop. I must. I'm going to Glasgow
I
in
don't think you
November.
should, and equally, I'm going to lobby with the whiskey show organisers, Whiskey Exchange. I think they should build an assault course. So if you're going to do it, like inflatable things, and if you're going to do it, then you've got to run the gauntlet, and we'll video it. Got to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll carry on what I'm saying for a second, but then Ben Martins just asked a question. It's a good opportunity. He said, "Would you say that you were an influencer, Vin?" But I actually follow the same archetype as Matt there. I don't like the word, but I've been called it, and I've been invited to things as it. Um, I think it's a tough one because it has a negative connotation because of the people who do call themselves influencers tend to be, the kind of Instagrammy. I'm not even whiskey world here. I'm talking about just generally the world of influencer. So I think it's like the term expert for me. Very rarely should you call yourself that term. Someone else should call it you if you are, and that's fine. But yeah, I don't like it. But I guess undeniably, people buy bottles of whiskey depending on what I say. So to a certain extent, yes, I am, but I'll never say that I am. Put it that way. Um, Yeah, so talking of that first time then at the Bimber, funny enough, I didn't realise I did this, but I've actually got my little sample of the first release still
Beautiful.
there. So I keep meaning
Beautiful.
to give it away to somebody, but then it just keeps sitting on my desk. Um, yeah, yeah, but obviously I was impressed. At the moment, I've only got two, unfortunately. You've got a few more Bimbers behind you, I'm sure, but
Just a few.
just a few. But we've both got the same one today. And actually, ironically, completely unplanned as well. But this dram featured on my last live stream as well with Ben, because obviously we came to see you together, and we both picked up a bottle of this. So now not only is Bimber 2 for 2, but so is the Imperial Stout cask 2 for 2 on my live
No,
streams now.
no, and Ben was. I've seen it on his channel. He was pretty effusive about it. He really liked it. I like it, but then I'm biased because that was
Mm.
my baby playing around with beer casks. But yeah, when I just went to my pile of what can I bring from Bimber and drink along, I was like, yeah, I'll bring that one. So it's
Mm.
good to see that we're both on the same dram.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd obviously been to Bimber before. I was excited to go and show some people that hadn't been before, and even a friend of mine who he wasn't a whiskey head, but he's a well, he is, but not in terms of like socially. So when we tried this, we tried a few. Yes, I've had that. I've had that. And I remember the moment where we all tried this. None of us knew what it was. None of us knew that it was the Imperial Stout cask. None of us knew it was the Bimber Club bottling. And all of us was just like, how much is this? Can we all buy a bottle today, please? And that's,
Yeah, it was easy sales. I think I sold you one each,
yeah,
which
all of
yeah,
us.
happy
All of
days.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah. Even, and
good stuff.
to let everyone else know about how easy it was to that, even Mac, who was with us from Japan, who was like, I will go over the limit to take this bottle home with me. So that was yeah, pretty good. It's a pretty good whiskey, but I think at the moment you can only get this at the distillery, right? Have you even got any left?
It was produced as a club release,
Mm.
and so we're not going to ever give a club release like a general off you go. But I don't think there's too many left now. But any sort of leftover bottles that aren't bought by the club members, we'll put them in the distillery. Um, Obviously, as a as a whiskey distillery, we don't want to have things lying around forever. We are quite small. We do need the revenue. So yeah, there's not too many left, but we do have a new pretty big batch of Bimber coming in the next couple of weeks, which yeah, it should sate a lot of the people who have been saying, "Oh, I don't live close to the distillery, so I can't swing by to pick up what you got there, but I really want to try Bimber." So yeah, I'm hopeful that it's a 7,000 bottle release, our biggest, and it will be our oldest batch of ex bourbon. It'll be over five. Um, we're going to be 7 years of age in terms of the spirit next month.
Mm.
So yeah, this is a vatting 7,000 bottles of 5-year-old Bimber. So yeah, I'm hopeful that people who perhaps haven't been able to try it or haven't been able to get anything from us in a while, recognizing that we are small, we do some special releases, which can be a bitch to get hold of. This one being a general release, lots of bottles. Yeah, hopefully it should tick some boxes for you.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, because it's, I mean, people won't know it unless you've actually been to Bimber. And I've said this before. I did a little video on it way back when. But you really can stand in one spot and do it and just turn on the spot and see everything. It's so small, and the stills are small. The warehouse is small, so I get it. When it's a pain for me because as a fan of Bimber, I often struggle to get some of those releases you were talking about. Is even if I'm there ready to go, if you sneeze or get distracted by 2 minutes, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, for stuff like that, we've moved on to ballot.
Yeah,
I've said many times in many forums, the only method that for any distillery that individuals think is fair is the method that gets them a bottle.
yeah, of course.
I got one. Great method. Love it. Do it again. There is no great method. So yeah, we do a weighted ballot. What I will say though is for every distillery, the longer you run, the more you produce, the better that situation gets. If it's always very difficult for a young distillery because on the one hand you've got people saying we want whiskey, we've heard about it, want to try it now. And on the other hand, you've got people saying, oh, I can't wait to try what this tastes like when it's 10 or 12 years old.
Hmm.
Well, those two things are literally, they're like two magnets, repelling each other. If you provide everybody with whiskey, and we could give everybody all the Bimber that they wanted, but then there would be nothing left to see what tastes at 10, 12, 15, 18, etc. So there's this balancing act, and it is not easy. It is not easy. We don't like to see anyone upset. You don't want to like people say, "I'm such a fan. I'd love to get it." It's very, very difficult. And I've certainly been there, not in the last few years, but certainly maybe sort of 6, 7 years ago, feeling that FOMO. It's very real, and you have to. I don't have it at all now, but that was a conscious decision just to. I forget which bottle it was, but I really wanted it. I didn't get it, and at that point, I was like, why am I so het up? There's so much whiskey. The cupboards here are full of it. It's everywhere. The wife is joking that it's all over the house. Let it go. But it can be really difficult for people. And I completely understand that, having been there myself. I really do. And yeah, as a distillery, you see people with passion. You really want to get them the whiskey, but you have to try and make it as fair as possible.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm with you on the FOMO thing as well. That there was a period of time when I was buying up as much as I could of various different things. And then this year especially, I've made a conscious effort to not buy whiskey, but what I don't do now is spend endlessly scrolling Twitter or seeing all the deals, and that's helped me not buy stuff. Doing tastings is what's the nightmare for me, because I end up drinking the drink and then going, oh, I quite fancy that, and then I've got a bottle of it. I've got a couple of questions for you then from the chat while we're talking about Bimber. Multi-Mission Menno is saying, how do you feel Bimber evolves over time as a whiskey, and which casks suit it best in your opinion?
Sure. So we are only really seeing how Bimber's starting to evolve ourselves. All of us at Bimber, although we come with experience, we, like many in the English whiskey sector generally, relative to colleagues in America or in Scotland, you don't come with grandfather worked in the distillery and that knowledge is passed down. So, and a distillery that's been running for 200 years, and notionally you've got flavor records going back. So it's all sort of a brave new world. But we can certainly see what's been happening since we filled those casks up to the point that they're now going to be turning 7. Bimber, the profile is that the fruitiness simply expands. So the early casks that I've tried, a few of you might have tried cask number 11. There were certainly some samples of that going around. That is one of the oldest ones, obviously. The fruitiness really expands. It really takes on a sort of even more tropical character, which is great. That's what we spend all that time doing, a week-long fermentation, open top for. That's what we're trying to achieve. So that develops. So does the woodiness, but in an interesting way. It goes darker. So if you think about woods being, behind me, you've got those Bimber boxes. There's sort of a light pale, sort of a pine. Then you've got the frame, the bookcase. They're all in a bit darker. I don't think I've got any examples near me, but yeah, I would say that the sort of Bimber woodiness is heading more towards sort of gradually heading towards a mahogany color. It's getting darker and darker and darker, and that's great because that really adds a sort of sense of depth. But it is a double-edged sword. If you think about the balance between spirit and distillate, I would say that my preference is always that the distillate leads. Some whiskies, they might be tasty, but I'll still feel that in my head that they're not truly ticking my box if it's basically 95% cask and a bit of booze there. We are aware at Bimber that because of the way we make whiskey, because of the tight cut that we make, although it's not, it's done entirely manually. There's no kind of cut points in that sense. It's not on the clock. It's not measured. It's not to here. It's literally the distiller makes that cut point when they feel it. Nevertheless, that cut point is very, very tight. And so the general spirit profile coming off those stills results in an extremely high level of pickup from the cask, i.e. of extraction, which is great when we're putting out whiskies at the minute. They're 5, they're 6, we're tasting 7. I think that's going to be fantastic all the way up to about 8. But at that point, you end up with this interplay that there's only, it's like when you're making, I don't know, chili con carne, and you're like, it needs a bit more salt. Okay, yeah. No, it needs a bit more salt. And you keep on adding salt, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's too salty now. Now, you've made that chili too salty, but you can't add sugar in to make it less salty. It doesn't work like that. It's now just too salty. There's nothing you can really not really do about sort of masking the flavour. So in that sense, Bimber will reach a point where the cask influence on those casks, which at the minute everything we've done, everything has been first fill. The cask influence will be, in my opinion, too high. And at that point, we're going to do something different. We are well aware of this, and we've been filling an increasing number of refill casks. So we're well aware, but you're not going to see a Bimber first fill 18-year-old. It's not going to happen, guys. That'll be way extracted, too much. You will see a Bimber 18-year-old in a refill cask. Those casks, once you've extracted with them, they go from being this sort of tight vessel that really has this sort of limited lifespan to potentially having immense flexibility. You could bottle it young. I don't think we will. We want to have big impact. That's where the first fill cask will be. But in terms of anything sort of 10, 20, even older, refill cask will cover a massive swathe of those. In terms of my preference for wood, those who know me will know it's no surprise, and this goes for any whiskey virtually. My preference is ex-bourbon, whether it's Bimber or not. My personal preference for casks of whiskey is refill ex-bourbon, any cask. And I would say that's probably true of Bimber as well. But, sort of brand hat on, ex-bourbon, it is the cask that shows off the character of our spirit. It's where you can taste what we've put into it in terms of how we've processed the ingredients, how we've run that long ferment, malolactic fermentation to cause esters, and also particularly how we've used direct fire to build oiliness and weight into the spirit. Once you start adding sherry casks in, the fruitiness then moves to sort of red fruits, berries, plums, darker fruits. That's a lovely thing, but it masks some of the brighter sort of yellow and tropical fruits. And you also then get a different texture. So the texture you get off ex-bourbon is mainly the weight from the stills. The texture you get when you start playing around with port, wine, and sherry comes with a lot of natural tannins that are held in those wine casks, and that it just changes the structure of the whiskey. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I know a lot of people love our Nichols and Perks port cask release. It's full, it's fat. I certainly really like it, but my preference and our house style is and probably always will be ex-bourbon. A lot of people think it's a simple cask. Some people might think it's boring. But I think there is often beauty in simplicity. And I would say the same is true of ex-bourbon at virtually any distilleries, even the distilleries that say we only do sherry. I love finding out that they have done some bourbon casks, because they always do. And I often prefer those examples, even of some of the biggest, most desirable distilleries. It's a big fat 20-year-old sherry cask. Yeah, have you tried the ex-bourbon though? They're often really, really tasty.
No, do you know what? I completely agree as well. Like something that's happening to me a lot is my taste and my preferences tend to go round and round a little bit.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I went through a big bourbon kick and I went through a big peat kick, and I'm still on my peat kick. But I found myself recently, to my surprise, really coming back to ex-bourbon, and just picking up the classic flavors. I think it's well worth definitely not ignoring, but it's well worth exploring more and more, in different ways as well, because obviously you've got your first fills, your refills, like you said as well. There's so many different flavor profiles you can achieve with that. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and I'm always looking forward to trying things as well. And that kind of leads us neatly on. I do have a couple of questions, but I'll come back to those in a bit. I'm going to go with the Darve Away question next, because
Okay.
we've got a new distillery to talk about in a bit, but I think the Darve Away is a good segue into that, because this is kind of like this is all you, right? This is all you putting these out, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a team effort behind it. I didn't draw the labels. There are some other people at play here, but it is my baby. It is my project. It was effectively given me as a task from the moment I took the job in December year before last, through to towards last autumn, which was, we need you to go away, find casks, devise an indie bottler, come up with the brand, do it all, and get it to the point where you've released the bottles. It's bloody difficult. it's still hard work. Originally, we were talking about doing lots of releases every month. Yeah, at the minute, we can't store any casks at Dunphail. We will talk about that shortly.
Hmm.
We're not legally allowed to store casks there yet. We will be. So that means working with all of these casks, which are they're all over Scotland. A lot of them, you say, right, can we do this? Can we move it? And they say, yeah, no problems. It'll be 4 months. And you're like, you what? You're shitting me? No, it's 4 months, 4 months. And then you've got all this paperwork. It's there. I've learned, I went into indie bottling knowing a lot about what I was bottling. So what is inside the bottle, I am deeply connected to. They're all things that I like and that I have selected based on their character, based on their what they do in terms of that style of whiskey. It's why the first four are all pretty much ex-bourbon. Go figure. And also the price point. There's enough whiskey out there that is pretty expensive,
Hmm.
and so I want to bottle things that people open and drink. I don't want to bottle things that I know mine are closed behind me, but then they're my babies, so I'm allowed. Equally, there are others. I will be doing it shortly that are open. I want people to drink it. I will pour myself one in a moment. But yeah, I've just learned so much about what's outside the bottle. You think you know about whiskey. You think, oh, it's bottling and there's some tax to pay and there's some paperwork. Okay, fundamentally, yes. But when you actually get to the nitty gritty of all the things that have to happen, and this is only this is standard glass. At the minute, it's a standard capsule. We are, for the next releases, we've finally trying to run distillery, open another distillery, and do a bottling thing. It's mental. But there will be two new releases coming shortly, and then we've got the next 8 lined up. So this year you will see a lot more from the Darbel way. We'll be getting a bit of a stride onto it. And yeah, we'll be using some branded little basic boxes, some branded corks and capsules. But just getting these babies into standard glass, standard corks, it's difficult. None of it's easy. If any of you guys are sort of sitting there watching it going, I like whiskey. I think I know a lot about whiskey. I think I could be an independent bottler. Bully for you. You go and do it, because I think I know about whiskey, and I'm telling you, this was over 12 months of it was pain. Frankly, it was just pain. It's not easy. I have I have a lot of respect for indie bottlers. I'm telling you, since doing it myself, I have doubled the respect for them now, because it's not like once you've done it that all of those things you obviously understand it, but every time you do it, you still got to go through the same hoops.
Yeah.
Find the casks, assess them, do some type of negotiation on price potentially, because casks are disgustingly expensive, and a lot of them are just, in my opinion, not economic for bottling, and definitely not economic for bottling for drinking. Doesn't work that way. Then you've got to go through all the loopholes around the legalities. So you're probably going to want to talk to SWA about what exactly you're putting on the label, because there's nothing worse than making a cock up there and finding that actually you've put something that's inaccurate. And then you physically got to do with the bottling stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I've lost hair and sleep over it, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not even remotely to your level, but my own little dabble in independent bottling
Yeah.
was,
Your no nonsense whiskies. Yep, yep.
yeah, it's
So you know a bit what I'm talking. Was it pain a little bit?
so yeah. I mean, like I said, I only really scratched the surface because I had someone do it all for me, which ended up being so unbelievably expensive. It was, like, I can't understand how anyone makes a business out of it, to be honest. But what got me about it was that not only did it take so long from start to finish, like you said, but then you've released it, but then again, as you said, you're back to square one again. So if you want to do even a release every month, you have to have started all of this like 12 months, and then the next month, well, you got to do it. You got to start another one, then you got to start another one, and where's all that capital coming from? So you've either got to be stonkingly rich to start with, or you've got to know a lot of people who will do it as mates rates. But yeah, for me, I've done 3. I've got a cask maturing, but I just can't. like I can't see myself ever wanting to go into that world full time because that is a
Yeah, I
nightmare.
mean, if I didn't have the backing of the
Mm,
Bimber team and soon the Dunphail team, soon, so there'll be more people helping me. Fantastic. If I didn't have that, and if it was, the Dramble team, myself and Danny, we spoke for years about did we want to just dabble in it, maybe
mm,
do one or two annual releases, the Drambles pick this. We really, really don't. I would say if you've got the backing and the contacts and people effectively having a distillery there. I mean, we can't bottle. This is all Scotch. We can't bottle that in Bimber. That
mm.
would be so easy. I wouldn't be sitting here saying, "Oh my God, this is pain." If we were able to just bring this all to Bimber, because we're really geared up there and we bottle at a very high standard, and we're pretty quick at it now because we've been doing it a few years. Can't do any of that. We will be able to do that at Dunphail once it's licensed and open in the not too distant future, which is exciting news. But yeah, up until that point, yeah, I wouldn't say we've been able to get any mates rates, but you've got to make some good connections out there. You've got to pick some good casts. You've got to, and the one thing I think a lot of people forget is whiskey doesn't actually sell itself. You do actually need people. This is all hats off, effectively. People like me, promoters, marketeers, just to get the name out there. And even the Dove Away, even with Bimber, which people know about, Dunphail, which people are getting to know about, there's still lots of people who haven't heard of it yet. And it's a whole separate concern that once we get Dunphail open, then I should have a little bit more time to really sort of promote the Dove Away as an ongoing concern, get more people tasting it, and get more people out there. If you're just sat in your bedroom trying to promote a whiskey, yeah,
Yeah,
well, you did all right. You did all right, mate. You did all right. You did it.
yeah, I did
You,
it.
you've still got all your limbs, so you're all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, just about. Yeah, I managed to do it without taking any kind of nasty loans or anything like that. So yeah, still got the limbs.
Yeah,
People
I
ask me
mean,
to.
my advice for anyone
Sorry.
thinking about it would just be think again. I'm not saying that don't do it, but I'm just
Mm,
saying really, really, it's not easy. And I would say unless you are really rich, or you're one of the established players, Gordon MacPhail, SMWS, who bought tons of casks of new make 20, 30 years ago. If you're just looking in and buying ready mature casks now, yeah, really take a look at the figures.
yeah.
You are not going to get rich quick being an independent bottler. And so what I would say about the Double Way is its primary purpose is to draw attention to Dunphail. It's something for us to do whilst we don't have any whiskey in Scotland. So, we need things to give to people on tour. We can give them the new make spirit, unpeated peated. We will, of course. This is what we're making. We need things in the shop. But for at least 3 years, probably four, we won't have whiskey up there. So we need whiskey because a distillery about whiskey is a very sad place indeed. And we need things to talk about for the next 3 years whilst we wait for this whiskey that we're going to make to mature. So yeah, it has to work financially. There's no point bottling something and going, how's it going? Oh, fantastic! It's all sold. Oh, how did you do? Oh, we lost 40 quid a bottle. Uh, that's not happening. So it has to work financially, but equally, yeah, for us, the sort of the imperative for it is to help us with Dunphail. It's part of that business plan from a tours, from a shop point of view, slightly from a financial point of view, but not much because there's not a lot of money to be made in indie bottling, in my
Mm.
opinion. But also definitely from a visibility point of view.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I tried the four inaugural releases. You kindly sent me samples of those months ago now, and they did not last, so I don't have them today. Um, I mean, just look, I did get my tasting notes out. Obviously, I remember saying to you that the four of them are like they're like a whiskey fans, a whiskey drinkers exploration of those distilleries. But my favourite by a good wedge was the Orkney distillery.
Orkney, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, they're all my babies, and as a good parent, you should never have a favorite child. But I don't have
we
any
all do
kids in
though.
real life, so I'm a bad parent. So I can sit on this stream with you and say the Orkney is my favorite child.
Mm,
It was the first cask I ever bought for the Dove Away. We are sitting on some inventory, as has sort of been implied for future releases. There's quite a lot coming. There might even be my beloved LeChick, not that far down the line. So look out for that if you know what I like to drink. But equally, I love Highland Park. It was one of my early distillery explorations. Moving from the 12-year-old to the 18-year-old was probably one of the most eye-opening sort of markers of wow, whiskey can the step up in quality for me is palpable, the 12 to the 18. And increasingly, I have enjoyed indie Highland Parks.
Yeah.
Sorry, indie Orkneys. I just think that the presentation of them in terms of the high strength, being very distillate forward, often being one wood type rather than trying to create an artful marriage. I really, really like them. And so this cask, not only was it the first, but it really spoke to me in terms of me as a whiskey drinker. And so I know those who've tried it have either sort of smiled and said, this is really tasty. Thank you, guys. Or they've smiled and just said, I can see why you picked this, Matt. It's very you. So yeah, I do have a favourite child, and it is that Orkney, definitely.
Yeah, it was sublime. If I don't know if you've still got some of that around, but if people are watching, I mean, obviously,
no, unfortunately, everything's sold out, which is again a good problem to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be two new releases coming as soon as it's all shipped down from Scotland. There will be a mystery Speyside, which I have got a bottle behind me. Let me just nab that. The label here, because it's a mystery, has just got the Telford Bridge on it, which I saw in one chat group had lots of people trying to guess which distilleries were right near the Telford Bridge. And I had to sort of step in and say, I just picked it because it's a nice picture. The distillery is near-ish, but it's not. That's not an indication. Yeah, this is from a distillery that normally bottles sherry casks and say that they don't do ex-bourbon, but they do, and this is one of them. So this Secret Speyside will be coming out soon, and it will be joined by our first bottling of Kalila at a. It's a pretty accessible Kalila in terms of the price point. The ABV is not ripping, but it is cask strength. And it's archetypal for me. It's got the sort of holy trinity of citrus fruit, lemon, medicinal peat, surface cleaners, wipes, big smoke, and then that minerality. That for me is the sort of the holy trinity of what Kalila tastes like. So those two are coming down the pipe pretty soon. But as I say, there's 6 or 8 that we've got the cask for, we've slated, and it's more just about simply the production of getting them bottled and then getting them ready. But yeah, lots more coming from the Dove Away this year.
Perfect. There was another question about Dove Away before we move on, and that's: are you at the moment? Are you aiming for single malts, or would you be interested in grains and blends in the future?
There will be some grain coming. Not the next release, but the release after has some pretty old grain.
Oh, I'm interested.
Pretty old grain, yeah. There's all sorts of things here. I would say that I'm pretty open to bottling a lot of things, but I don't think you're going to see me bottling rum or even things that I know a lot about, mezcal and things like that. Rum, I enjoy. I have a few bottles, but I just don't know enough about it, frankly, and I dare start to learn about it. It's just too much. So I think what you're going to see from us is going to be definitely all whiskey. It is going to be at least 95% Scotch. Excuse me, that's not to say that there might, if I can persuade him, there might be some indie Bimber at some point. It's a little bit self-serving. But I assess all the casks, and there's certainly some I'd be like, oh, I'd love to bottle that. But at the minute, all the casks that we have are Scotch, but there is some grain there. I am absolutely not averse to blended malts. Indeed, part of my role for Dunphail is as the blender. So yeah, I have no problems with things being put together. Sometimes that marry up well, or sometimes that come from polar opposites. But that marriage being something that can create something that's elevated, beautiful, or simply thought-provoking. No problem with that. So I suspect you will see some Dove Away blends coming down the pipe at some point. But yeah, the grain is coming in the not too distant future.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be interested in that for sure. Well, that brings us then. We talked a lot about everything other than Dunphail. For those that don't know, Dunphail is a new distillery that you've gone live now, right? It's actually churning stuff out.
Yeah. We are about I would say about sort of 6 weeks, 8 weeks, all being well, touch wood.
Perfect.
We're literally waiting for the boiler. It's the last piece of equipment. It should be arriving shortly.
Mhm.
Plumb in the boiler, and then we wait for HMRC sign off, and then off we go. Yeah, start to make spirit. So we're really close.
Yeah. How long's that been going on for now? Because you're what do they call you? You're the director of whiskey creation and
Director
outreach,
of
right?
whiskey creation, which is the highfalutin way of saying I play around with the casks and I stick things together in a few years' time. Um, that's an interesting question, but how long's it been going? The build has only been 15 months
Mm.
because it's us. We're mental. We built it ourselves, literally. Darius is up there and has been up there for most of the build. It's quite funny. I've had some Zoom calls when I'm like, Darius, can you join this call? And he's like, give me 2 minutes. And he's joined the call whilst being on a digger because he's working, mental. But yeah, we've built the distillery ourselves, which is why it's quick. You know, you look at a lot of distilleries, they're
Mm.
2 years, 4 years. No, we can be quick and agile because we like to build things. But the actual how long it is longer. Darius's vision was always to build a Scottish distillery. He visited when he first moved over to the UK about 20 years ago. He visited Speyside, and that's where he fell in love with whiskey. But there's just no way that a Polish guy and a Londoner are going to start a Scottish distillery without any type of credentials at all. You know, the investment is substantial. The time, the support is substantial that you need. You need some credentials. So Dunphail isn't Bimber. It's not Bimber 2. Bimber's not moving to Scotland, but it is building off the lessons of Bimber. And I think it's 100% honest to say that Dunphail would never have happened without Bimber.
Mm.
Our success at Bimber is the only reason why people are like, okay, these guys, they do know what they're doing. So we'll give them some investment, or yeah, we'll help them out because these guys, yeah, they understand it. So and that process, of envisaging it, planning it, designing it, that's years in the making for Darius, for my boss. Years.
Yes. Yeah. Ben Marnott's asking an interesting question, which I actually know a touch about as well. But he's saying surely you don't build a distillery and then ask the HMRC if it's okay. But isn't the process, if my understanding is right, is that you submit an application, but you don't really know if because you have to do that before you even start anything, right? You have to do all the plans and everything.
So you effectively get in virtually everything a sort of you get permission, and it's contractual. You effectively say you can do this, but in terms of actually signing off a site to say now you may make spirit, now you may serve drinks, now guests can come in physically to the premises. They're only going to do that when everything is installed and they can come and visit it and make sure that they're happy with what you're doing. So, yeah, it's a it sort of goes hand in hand with the planning process, with the building process. You don't sort of wait to the end and go, oh, hello, HMRC, we've done a thing. They are well aware of it, as are Murray Shire Council. But you only get that sort of permission to go, sign off. Everything is good. We've checked it out from a safety point of view, from a production point of view, from a security point of view, but particularly from a tax licensing point of view. That is what we're looking at here: the ability to store things on bond. But that's the big one. You only get that right at the end because they're not going to come in midway through and say, "Yeah, you're all right," and
Mm.
then you go, "Oh, great, we're signed off. We're going to do something completely different now."
Mm-hmm.
No, they want to see. It's like when you build a house. There are various stages that they come visit, but you only get that planning sign off once you've finished it. Same thing.
Mm. Cool, cool. And you mentioned a bit earlier that your plan is to do unpeated and peated throughout.
Yeah. So the spin with Dunphail, it's as I said, it's building off the lessons of Bimber. So long ferment, open top fermenters, more of them, direct fire on the stills. But the spin with Dunphail is we will be 100% floor malting all production ourselves on site. So we've built a floor malting facility and a kiln. For the unpeated, which is going to be about 60% of production, we're going to be drying in the kiln using anthracite, which is basically a sort of similar thing to coal. It's how they used to dry. If they weren't drying whiskey using just air, it's how they used to dry it. Certainly 100 years ago, you will still see. I don't know if they still do it. I think they still do it. You'll see it at Balvenie using anthracite for drying it. Or 40% of the time, then we'll be using Aberdeenshire peat. So a combination of dry peat to get the fire going, and then wet peat to create that peat smoke, to put out the flames and to create the reek. And then we'll be peating for 40% of the time. So whereas at Bimber, we just did our first peated release last year. We only peat for 2 weeks a year. So, Bimber, 1 barrel a day, 50,000 litres a year. 1 week a year, 2 weeks a year we peat. It's not a lot. Whereas at Dunphail, we've got up to 200,000 litres per year, which is still small and craft in the grand scheme of things, but a lot more than Bimber. And yeah, we're looking at about 40% of production being peated. So it's definitely an aspect and a character that is important to the distillery. It certainly fits into the sort of things that I like to drink. So that makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to, right, hasn't it? I mean, it sort of touching on the independent bottling thing again, but if you're creating a whiskey for a distillery, I mean, it's got to be something you're going to like, but you have to find that balance where it's going to be sort of mass appeal as well. But
yeah, certainly for the you're completely right, Vin, for the independent bottling side as well. You look at my whiskey collection, I don't have a lot of light floral grassy whiskies. It's not my go-to, but equally people like that type of stuff. So I need to be pretty conversant in what they are and how they work, even though they're not what I drink. Same with Dunphail. My preference is always peated whiskey, but that's only 40% of the production. So Darius and I, although we have different jobs there, he's the master distiller, so effectively he creates and the team creates the spirit. And then me and the team take that, look at the wood policy, look at the maturation, and then I look at the final blend, the final marriage of cask. But unless everyone is really happy, that's just who's leading it. But unless everyone's really happy with all of it, it's not really going to work. You have to feel it. It's all about here. Even if it's not your go-to style. If I was just bottling what I like, it would just be a bunch of Lechick, Highland Park blends. It'd just be a bunch of filth. Which is great, but the whiskey market is bigger than me.
I don't think you'll be able to answer this question, to be honest, but a question from Whiskey Diary Ben. He's asking what sort of price point are you going to be aiming at for Dunphail, and are you aiming for small batch premium products, or are you going to go for a kind of core range?
I can answer the second part. I absolutely cannot say about price. It's way too early. Equally, what I can say on that is since starting to put a spade in the ground to now, nearly opening, the price of dry goods and electricity and malt has absolutely shot up. So, any predictions that you made at the point of here it is on paper to here it is nearly open are completely out the window. Equally, where we're going to be in 4 years' time, hopefully in a better position in terms of, inflation and the cost of things. Who's to say? Way too early to make predictions on that. What I would say is, we're not we're following a Bimber mentality. So we're looking to make whiskey that people want to open and drink, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So don't expect to see, here it is, here's the new Dunphail, it's £300. I can tell you now that's not what we want to do. But in terms of where that price point is going to be in, you're talking 4.5 years' time, really. No idea. What are we going to be making? Well, what I would say is that 200,000 LPA is not nothing. There's no way that you could just do small things and churn through that amount of volume. It's the same size as when Kilhoman opened, to give you they're bigger now because they expanded, but when they opened, that's the comparison point that springs to my mind. So yeah, there needs to be some type of small batch, and equally we want people to find out about it. There absolutely will be core range product. There will be a core range product for Bimber. We have a conversation about every 3 months at Bimber about when is the right time to do this. We were thinking about it for this year, but this year is weird. I think it will be next year. But the goal for, I think, any distillery really has to be some type of some type of product that people recognize. But some distilleries will get there quicker than others. You can't do everything. You can't release all the casks in one format and then release the same cask again in another format. So you have to, when you're a small distillery, you have to decide which route you're going. But I would say at 200,000 LPA for Dunphail, there has to be a certain amount of volume at that point. Otherwise, the distillery is too big for what you're trying to do. So if that gives you more of a hint, then yeah, you can expect larger releases from Bimber because the distillery is 4 times larger.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very excited for it, and I'm looking forward to coming up to see the new distillery at some point when I can.
Yeah, always welcome. At some point, we'll have to put on. I don't know. I want to do fireworks and a laser show, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. But yeah, at some point you'll have to come up and see some sort of opening thing for when we do get going, and hopefully the weather's nice for that as well.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say an influencers evening.
Yeah, I am, but I'm going to call you all experts.
I'll take it. If you say it and I don't, that's fine. I'll take it. Even though other live streams do a quiz, and I'm always dreadful, especially at Scottish distilleries knowledge, because I branch out so far and wide that I lose. I couldn't tell you the size.
I did Roy's one a couple of years ago, and I can't remember how I did, but my vague recollection is massively averagely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm below average every single time. It's just so in depth. That's why I've always got the malt whiskey yearbook with me, because that's my knowledge keeper. That's my knowledge keeper.
It's the one. Never mind these book of Bibles. Forget that. It's not whiskey yearbook. That's the one whiskey book every year that everyone needs to buy. So it is an absolute Bible.
Absolutely. We've gone slightly over an hour, and we've gone through quite a lot of stuff, and we've also talked about things that might be coming out in the future. But at the end of the show, I always like to give you kind of an open format to let us know what's coming. So, I mean, from earlier, from talking, we've got Dramble coming back, we've got more Darvaway coming, we've got a whole distillery coming. Anything else is coming?
Yeah. I mean, there's loads and loads of things. I'll be having a sleep at some point. This will be coming.
Oh.
So I'm not going to tell everybody what it is, because that will give the game away. More things from Bimber. This is something quite new. We're doing a collaboration, which is not new. Bimber do loads of collaborations. Is what we're about. But this collaboration is with another whiskey making outfit. And so rather than being a collaboration between us and a brewery or us and some type of brand where we're licensing it like the Underground, no. This is us and another whiskey making outfit. They'll be releasing, I don't want to give the game away here, they'll be releasing a thing with us, and we'll be releasing a thing with them. You all will know who the other players are. And this is the one that I've made. So this will be my first thing that I've put together under my name. And I'm pretty excited for it. Again, it's one of those I created this a very long time ago, but just the gestation to get that from here's a thing in the lab to this is a product available for you guys to enjoy and to get stuck into. You wouldn't believe how long it takes, and it takes even longer when there's two companies doing the same thing but different things together to make two different things. So any more and I'll give the game away, but I'm super excited for it. It's going to be coming. So Bimber, you're going to see a big batch release. You're going to be seeing a couple of surprises coming up over the next few weeks. I definitely won't say anything about that. More underground, of course, because we have to get through all of it. That's never ending. And then, probably towards the end of next month, you'll be seeing this thing, which is, it's a Matt creation. So it's almost am I actually any good at this job that I've been given for Dunphail? You can tell me. You can tell me.
So obviously you're telling us what you can. What's that? Is that coming out as a Bimber then? Is it, or is that something else entirely? Are you not allowed to say?
Coming out as a Bimber. Well, it's coming out under the Bimber brand. It's very difficult. All will make sense, but it will. There's a thing coming out under the Bimber brand, but it is very clear what it is and what it isn't.
Mm-hmm. No, fine. I was just thinking in terms of who I need to pay attention to for when that's available.
and someone else, but we'll tell you all about them as
Yeah,
well, and they should tell all their people about us. So yeah, it's very difficult trying to talk something about mysteriously, and not just going here it
yeah,
all is.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a thing. I've made a thing with some good friends who also make things. They've made a thing with me. Both things will be coming out, and I think people hopefully will be able to enjoy them.
Excellent. I think it's probably best that we draw a line under it there in case you say too much, then, right? But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on
Well,
properly, rather than just a quick 10 minutes like you had on my 10K live stream all them years ago. But hopefully, hopefully you continue to be busy, but hopefully you get some headspace soon, and it can start getting a bit easier. But obviously, we all love the stuff you're doing. Um,
cheers,
you know,
appreciate it.
and I can't think of better hands to have a distillery under. To be honest, I've tried your spirits many times now, and they've all been banging. So yeah,
Thank you so much, Vin. I appreciate the comments more than you know. Thank you, anyone who's watching. Great questions. I'll check back on all the comments probably later and have a look what you've been chatting about. But yeah, thank you all for your support and your interest. And again, Vin, thank you for having me on. Great to see Dram Slam, and I look forward to watching some other guests. And yeah, other than that one sort of crash, we've done all right. We've got through it. So well done to you.
yeah. I think it's gone alright. I think I might be starting to figure this thing out now. So more streams. I'll be doing a stream every fortnight on a Monday now, as long as I can do it for. So yeah, thanks again, Matt. And if anyone's still up for a dram, join my Discord in the link below because we're going to be doing an after party. Well, I am. I think Matt's going to go and actually have an evening.
Have some life. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. And I'll